What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Kind of before I introduce this next artist, is I really just want to talk about connections in the music business real quick. Is just because making connections in the music, or whether it's outside of music and then evolving into the music business, it's so powerful and so creative to really make those connections and grow with other artists. And this is kind of how I met this artist. Was a few months ago. We were at a fundraiser, and I was wearing my ACK shirt. Always got to represent the music. And he came up to me at the fundraiser and he's like, "Hey, what is this whole ACK music thing? Like, what I see you got this whole Instagram, you got the interview series going on." So there I was promoting my music and stuff like that. He was showing me some of his stuff, promoting back, and that's kind of how this whole thing came about. Now, a few months later, we're here, we're live on the Spotlight series, and I have Invada Zim here. Man, how are you today?
I am great. I am great. I'm just excited and I'm ready to do this. Yeah.
And, no, I'm super excited to have you on. And I mean, obviously, when we met a few months ago, I was just super excited that you were engaged into the music and you said, "Hey, this is something I want to go on this show and kind of do this interview and see what it's all about." So it's super cool to have you here and just appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for the opportunity. And I just was just amazed and surprised too that, you also did music and at that fundraiser. And I was looking for people like you as well. So I'm just glad this worked out this way.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. So kind of hopping right into the first question is usually how I just kick off the interviews, is starting with the basic of basics, is where did music start for you? So like how did you really start getting into the music, and is how did it evolve from there?
Yeah. So uh it's a long story, but I mean, I don't want to at first, the first earliest, or at least what I'm told, at least from my mom, is like I used to, like how MTV videos has like some dance videos, or at least
Yeah.
at the time it was more rock and house music.
Yep.
So I liked house music because I would see like the girls on the screen dancing. So this kind of embarrassing, but apparently I would take my pants off because I thought they were naked because they're wearing like skin tight clothing, and then I'll like do my moves, whatever. But I always liked music. It just kind of like I just feel it. So it's just more natural to me, So it's I mean, besides that early, memory, I did music. I played few instruments. I didn't really follow through as I moved around. I'm initially from Zimbabwe, so when I came to the States, I um I had to, obviously new school, new area, all those things.
Yeah.
And one of the things I had to do was pick up an instrument. So the first instrument I picked up was a violin. I learned kind of like the basics, but then I had to move again, and I picked up the trumpet. And similar concept. I learned the basics. It was off of school, and after that, it was just more electronic. I was introduced to DAW, like Logic or GarageBand at the time, and then I later on evolved to Logic. So I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to actually get like any software really, and like start to practice just to know how
Right.
things work, because many DAWs are similar in concept. So the only thing is just like finding where each other option is really.
Exactly.
So yeah.
No, and that's cool, man. I mean, because it's just always so cool to ask that question because some people start at such an early age. But then I always like to compare it to someone like myself. Is I only started this back in 2018. The whole songwriting and producing aspect is I started messing around with GarageBand, like you said, and then I just evolved from there. I went into Logic Pro. I finally said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to pay the money and I'm going to get Logic Pro. And then I started messing around with that more. And I'm like, okay, I can mess with that and I can do my songwriting and kind of put the two together and then see what happens. So it's just, I definitely relate to how you kind of just come up with that stuff because that's like the producing aspect side of things and really making the music. And I love Logic Pro, I love GarageBand and stuff like that. And that's really what helped me become more of an artist of who I am.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So getting to the second question is talking about inspirations. I mean, I could sit here for hours and tell you all kinds of inspirations that I have from all different artists. I mean, the first person that always comes to mind is Chris Daughtry. He's a rock artist. He was on American Idol and stuff like that. And I've always looked up to him as an inspiration. I mean, just his music, the songwriting, and just his vocals like were so powerful to me. And I'm like, this guy is so cool, and the way he writes music is just it's what I connect with. And then country music was a huge thing in my life when I was young, is the storytelling aspect behind lyrics, is telling that story. So in 2018, when I started really songwriting and stuff like that, I wanted to tell the stories of country artists and how like Garth Brooks, Travis Tritt, Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw, but then like I said, Chris Daughtry. So those are all kind of big artists that I look up to, and always like to ask other artists, or who are some of your inspirations, and who are some artists that you really look up to and kind of listen to help get inspiration from.
So that is a tricky question. I have a few artists that after my whole deal for coming to the States, I listened to a lot of R&B at the time, but I didn't really understand genres, the whole concept at first.
Yeah.
But then I've later found out that I liked down south music and some, East Coast. But be more specific, I liked Ludacris, 50 Cent, and Kanye West. Those are like for creative music wise and like also kind of background and their hustle and all that stuff. That's kind of like who I look towards to for just really like that's who I really listen to begin with. So they kind of like shape a big part of my musical background. And I mean, I'm not saying I didn't listen to any other artists. Those were
Right.
like favorites because of like Ludacris is just very creative. The punchlines are, like it's comical at times. Like I always end up leaving like, yo, that was awesome. Like what? I didn't think about that. And then like 50 Cent is just more like, I mean, like there's a line where it was saying like America has this thing for this gangster shit, and like that was kind of like gangster music, or at least like talked more about like street life in general too.
Yeah.
So to help me understand more of the world and more of where I am and all that stuff, I listened to him, and also like just his background too was just and his work ethic. So as well as then going to Kanye West as well. And I know they had like a huge feud where there was like a challenge, who would sell more, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, yeah. I have like different likes for different artists, not say for things that no one else can do.
Yeah.
So
No,
um,
exactly. And I mean, it's always so hard to really just narrow it down because, like you said, it's not like you just listen to those three, like you said, like you listen to so many different artists, but sometimes it's really hard just to narrow down those like two or three or your top five artists because, I mean, you can get inspirations from so many artists, whether they're from back in the day or whether they're up and coming artists and stuff like that. There's just so many inspirations and so many different techniques that people use to really create your own craft as well. So it's
Exactly.
definitely one of my favorite questions to ask because it's always cool and unique to see who people kind of really look up to and who really help them evolve in the music industry. And getting into the third question is always one of my favorites, is talking about the creative process. I always have to shout out Garrett Walker, who was on the show. I mean, he gave me this quote when I asked him this question, and now I use this quote every time. So always got to shout him out. Is the creative process is like a puzzle, whether you have 500 or 1,000 pieces. You have all these puzzle pieces scattered on the table and you try to figure out what fits where. And then slowly you start putting the border together, you start putting the middle together, and you're like, okay, this piece goes there, that goes there. And by the end, you have this full masterpiece. You have this full song. You figured out where each piece fits properly. And now you have this thing that you can share with everyone and be like, hey, look what I just did. I made this song, I created this puzzle, and it's super cool. So I always like to ask people because there is no rhyme or reason to the music process, as you very well know, and as all artists know, because if there was a guide on how to songwrite and how to produce and all that stuff, then everyone would be doing it. But it's an art. So, what is your creative process like when it comes to making music?
okay, so like you said, there is no rhyme or reason. It just somewhat happens in with life too. Some things you just aren't able to really explain or can explain. So I'll use an example for one of the song like how I make songs sometimes and how I kind of start to do anything really, and I figure out like, oh, I want to make grow this into more. It's usually something like I'm usually make beats when I am feeling a certain way or whatever, but I found that I my the beats I make have a certain energy or a certain tone to it. So if I'm feeling kind of like upset or not just like down, but it could be dark, it could be any really emotion, it kind of translate that musically. So then within making that process, and already thinking of a song to go with it, like lyrics, to go with it, or like a vibe to go with it, because I'm not just making it just to make it, even though I am, but it's to make something from it. So I usually go in that direction, and I end up figuring like, oh wow, I could actually say this here and here, and it's actually fitting with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So I then that's really how I, and then yeah, it'll literally almost always start with either the beat, and then I'll just try to see how I can layer lyrics over it, and what the energy and the vibe I'm trying to encompass. And after that, it just kind of takes off. I try, then I go back, refine it, all that stuff, and the rest of the process.
Yeah, no, and it's history after that, usually is what I say after something comes together. But it's just always so cool is the emotion aspect, like you said, whether you're feeling sad, whether you're feeling happy, or you're just kind of in that dull moment. But it's just those are when the best songs come out, I feel like, is when you're really in those emotions and you say, hey, you know what? Like, yeah, this is gonna be a sad song and it might make people even more sad, but you know what? This is how I'm feeling right now, and this is the song I have to make. And then eventually, when you're happy and you're at your best and you're in your moment, that's when you make those happy songs, and you're like, hey, this is the emotions I feel right now. This is what people are going to connect with, and that's how it all kind of comes about. And it's always just cool to really ask that question because there are so many different ways of making music and how the creative process really comes out. And getting to the fourth question kind of really ties into this because it's how you make music and how you figure out what makes you stand out from other artists. Because Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, there are so many different platforms for artists to get names out there and promote their music. And I mean, there's thousands and thousands of artists in every single genre, no matter how you look at it. So obviously, as an artist, I know as an artist, it's hard to get your name out there sometimes. So with all these artists out there, my question is what makes you you compared to all these artists, and what can we take away from your music that we can't find in anyone else's music?
Uh, so what makes me me? So Invada Zim, it's the Zim part is mainly because I'm coming from Zim, so it's in Zimbabwe, and that's the shorthand of it. And it's well, I'm different in the sense that already coming from a different musical background. Not only am I using African roots as well, but also American traditional like hip hop, or considered like boom bap, or whatever, like the roots kind of. So I'm mixing different. I'm crossing the borders. I'm crossing all waters, all that stuff, mixing and interchanging and trying to bring a different approach.
Yeah.
I am finding now that a lot of things are sounding similar, and not to say they're bad either. No, it's just I would like to have like a different I don't know. It's more so like I think I feel like I bring the difference in like mainly the cultural background, and mainly the execution, mainly the styles, my uniqueness, my versatility, different beats and how they're used, and different messages and how they're translated. I try to not always be like the same, and each time I'm not doing that, or oh, so sorry, each time I'm trying not to do that, I find myself growing and seeing that like, wow, since I can do this, I now can also do so much more. So I have a huge passion and a fire inside me that's like a nonstop. I always like want to figure it out. I always want to do better. I always strive for better. So my work ethic is more like I would want to have like if I could only do music and not have to worry about X, Y, I would like you know that I'm sure everyone says that, but
Exactly.
that's that's just my like my passion for it. I just bring I want to just not bring something different, but I want to bring something that's like relatable, memorable, something that just like brings something, inside you, invoking emotion. Um,
Exactly. No,
something
and I mean that's what it's all about is really connecting with your audience and figuring out like I always say is when I'm writing a song or if I'm producing or something like that is if I can connect with one or two people rather than a million people, then at the end of the day, I feel like I accomplished something and I say, hey, that's a good song. If I just connected with two people and they say, hey, I relate to this so much, then at the end of the day, that's just that I can call myself a successful songwriter or a successful producer because I just connected with two people. And to me, that means the world. So I totally understand what you're saying. And I mean, obviously that is the dream at some point. But probably going to get into the next question is like you said, is if you could just do music full time, I mean, that would be the dream, honestly, is just to do that full time and not worry about X, Y, and Z, like you said. Um, and kind of getting to the fifth question is because it kind of ties into what we were just talking about here is looking towards the future for yourself because you have a lot of great music out there right now. We're going to listen to one of your songs in just a few minutes. Is what are some of your short term and long term goals? You have a lot of music out now, but obviously, can we expect more music? And just what else can we expect down the road from you?
so I have a lot that I've been working on, and the you're saying looking forward to my for my future. I have a song called LFTMF, looking forward to my future, and it basically just says that like I'm looking forward to like everyone's version of like success or whatever success is different. Obviously, in general, people want to have money and being able to take care of their loved ones, so money's not an issue. And then basically have people not be down or upset, whatever the case may be. But for me and what I'm going to and what I have been bringing, I have been releasing one song every month since the beginning of this year. And in doing so, I've been so the how I work, as I explained, I what I made was pre-release like pre-scheduled. So
Yeah,
I've been working on more music that is going to be released next year. So I'm not just working for this year as well, but I'm also already planning for next year. So there's a lot that's happening. Like as I was saying, spread thin. Like I from so not only so in my own personal like life, what I'm comfortable saying is I'm an instructor and I also go to school. I'm trying to do something business wise as well. So in music wise, you should not be only thinking as like only just music. So there's a very heavy business side of it.
exactly.
Very important to get yourself educated so you don't have to pay people. Then also you don't always know what you're getting. So it's very important to at least know. So at least before I digress and all that stuff. Yeah. So what I'm going to be bringing is more music until one song every month until the end of this year and next year. I've been with the music I've been working on. There's a big project that I've been working on, and it's basically it's different. It's very different.
Yeah.
Uh, it's very different. Yeah, it's very different, and not saying it's like not me or whatever. It's just like showing from the first song I released to like now, you can
So
see growth in different.
exactly. You can see the versatility and growth and everything. And that's I mean it's just super cool because like I said like you have so many good songs out and I mean obviously you release one every month so you have a lot of music out which is really cool because some artists I have on here are just starting out but you I mean you have plenty of music out and I've been listening to them on repeat for a while now ever since we kind of met a few months ago and it's super cool to really just hear like you said how from that first song that you ever released to where you are now to the song that we're going to listen to it's crazy how much that journey takes you and just really develops your craft and the versatility that you get from each and every single song because you grow more and more the more you release. So it's cool that you're already working towards next year and all these big projects coming up. And I mean, man, I just can't wait to see what else is coming for you.
Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. I really had no idea that. Yeah, but wow, thank you. Yeah.
No, of course. So obviously getting to the good part of the interview, no more questions, so we don't need to worry about any of those, is listening to a song from you. So we are gonna listen to On the Go, but kind of before I play a little bit of that, is how did this song kind of come about for you? I know this is your most recent release. So where did kind of the whole creative process come for this one?
so that one, it's a spin on like certain things that happen in my life or have been happening, and I I want to have like a very vast or just open catalog where if you want to have something chill, mellow, relax, or even hype and energetic. So that was the initial basis. And then what was happening was there's a lot of transitions in my life that were happening, and people were saying you're wasting your time doing X, Y, and Z, well, whatever, whatever. And those are common things you hear as well. So I knew someone else wasn't well, I knew someone else felt the same way. Everyone is striving to achieve their dreams, do whatever. So that's like, hey, stop doing whatever. So on the go, like, you know, my brother my brother called me and he was wondering what was happening with my music. And at first I wasn't uh what's the word? Like I wasn't so open up on my music.
Yeah,
So he wasn't thinking like actually this is has this is like what I want, or this has been my so to them, to whoever is not really in tune with what you're doing, that they may think it's just like a hobby or whatever. So I
exactly.
wanted to differentiate that. And the hobby part, I have another song that I'm working on to explain many more. So all these songs have pieces of me, and also things to help deliver the message. So on the go, it's a very the background, you shouldn't pay attention to it as much, but the song and the vibe is very energetic. It's yeah, like I love it because it's just like wow, all right, let's go, So I,
No,
that's just me.
exactly.
I just feel it and I go.
Yeah.
I don't really, yeah.
No, and that's awesome, man. So kind of without further ado, we're gonna take a listen to this one, and after that, we'll kind of talk about where we can find you on social medias and all that. But time for the fun part is to listen to this song, on the go.
All right, sweet.
This is a pretty straight up. Listen. My brother calling, I'm on the go. You wasting your time, I know that you broke. You wasting your time, you already know. I don't need a perk, I'm on the road, I just burn like 20. In a raw, I got my girl, she freaking to my toe. Just like a city, I spin on your block. And I'm so high, I'm on the go. I'm on the go, I'm on the go. You wasting your time, I know that you broke. You wasting your time, you already know. I don't need a perk, I'm on the road, I just burn like 20. In a raw, I got my girl, she freaking to my toe. Just like a city, I spin on your block. And I'm so high, fucking all night long.
Oh man.
So that is a little bit of on the go. I mean, man, that it's just it's a vibe. I mean, there's nothing else to it. Like you said, it's so cool. And like you said, just each song that you release has that different part of a story, and then by the end, once you get wherever the story ends, I think it's a never ending story if you ask me, which is super cool because it's just you don't see stuff like this. And I mean, and there's no one going back to the fourth question is what makes you you. There's no one that sounds like you, and there's no one doing what you're doing. And I mean, I'm definitely a huge fan of yours. And like I said, I just can't wait to see what else is coming for you.
Yeah, thank you. Before I forget, I want to say shout out to Draco Estrada. He's a upcoming beat maker too. I've been working with him, and I think I'm not trying to expose location. So he's also from overseas somewhere, and the newer projects I've been working on, he's heavily behind that. We exchange and share ideas, etc. So that yes, I want to make shout out to Draco, and also my fans too that have been with me and supporting me as well. Though, seriously, big yeah. Thank you.
No, of course, man. So for people that don't know who you are, I mean, because obviously you have your fan base and stuff like that, and everyone listens to all your music. But for people that don't know, is where can we find you on social medias and Spotify and all that fun stuff?
Yes. So the Spotify, all digital streaming platforms, I am most likely on. With some conflicts and all that stuff, I wasn't in certain countries. I may not be able to release them there exactly. But however, if you have Instagram or Facebook, Instagram has my link tree and or my my link there. It brings you to everywhere. However, if you don't have that platform, I am on TikTok. I am on Spotify, Instagram, SoundCloud. Each platform has a link,
Yeah,
so you can find me at Invada_Zim, or any if it could that and in Invada Zim. That's really it. Yeah.
yeah.
Invada Zim.
No, and that's awesome. I mean, yeah, because I was couple of like a week or two ago when I was looking at some of your stuff when you had reached out about doing an interview and stuff. I mean, all your link exactly like you said on your Instagram has everything, so y'all can go check that out. And I mean, definitely go on to Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you stream all your music, and go listen to On the Go. That's his recent release, and I mean, he has so many great songs out there and super talented. And that kind of concludes this episode. But kind of before I do my little outro here, is thank you again for being on the interview, man. And I'm super excited to have you on here.
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill is every Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got a new artist on here. You never know who's going to be here, never know what you're going to listen to. And y'all stay tuned for next week. And thanks for tuning in today.
Take care, everybody.